Hey guys, it's Eddie and today I am back with another little extra video for you all. I am going to get a movie review out at the end of this week for Film Fridays, but in the meantime I just thought I'd get out a couple of little extra videos that might just tell you a little bit more about me. This time last year I did do some top 10 videos, so like my top 10 favourite movies, my top 10 favourite horror movies. So this year I thought I would kind of do the same thing, and this year I was thinking, because I've been watching so many TV shows as of late, I would do my top 10 favourite TV shows. Now I am more of a movie person than a TV show person, but I have been really enjoying some series at the moment, and they've kind of taken precedent over movies, which is a little bit unusual, and I'm sure I'll get back into watching movies a lot more regularly soon, but I just thought I would give you guys an idea of what kind of TV shows I am into. So without further ado, this will be in kind of no particular order, but I would say that number one, which is the last TV show I mentioned, is probably my top show of all time. So yeah, up until number one, this is kind of in no particular order. But my first TV show that I absolutely love is Stranger Things. So we've all heard of it, we've all probably seen it. It's incredibly popular at the moment, especially with the release of the second series so recently. I just think it's fantastic. I love the 80s vibe. I think that the acting is incredible, especially from the four boys and Millie Bobby Brown as Eleven. I just think that the characters are spectacular. I think the soundtrack is excellent, and I love anything 80s, so I was probably bound to like this TV show really. And it took me a lot longer than I expected to actually watch it. I kind of put it off because it was so popular. I was kind of a bit like, oh, you know, it can't be that good. I don't know why people are talking about it so much. But when I actually watched it, I found out why everybody was so obsessed with it, because it is just brilliant. So if you haven't watched Stranger Things yet, I would highly advise that you do, because it's a great show. Both series are excellent. So yeah, give it a go. The next TV show that I absolutely love is Wolf Hall. Now I do study history, that is my degree of choice, and my sort of era of specialty, as I like to call it, is the Tudor era. And I think that Wolf Hall, which is adapted from Hilary Mantel's fantastic book, is a great series. Mark Rylance as Thomas Cromwell and Damian Lewis as Henry VIII is just a fantastic pairing. Damian Lewis as Henry VIII is actually my favourite portrayal of Henry VIII that I've ever seen, ever. So I just thought that this was an incredibly brilliant adaptation and interpretation of the events of that period. You might think, oh, it's a little bit boring and we've all heard the story, but actually I think that the acting is so spectacular that it takes that story of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn to another level. So yeah, it's a great series, and I kind of just fell for it straight away. It's really, really brilliant. The next TV show on my list is kind of a series that I don't watch anymore, which is sad because I loved it for a long time. It's not any particular reason that I don't watch it, I just haven't been able to get hold of it. It's not on my TV network at the moment, and it's not on Netflix, but it is Supernatural, and it's in its, like, what, 13th season now, and I do feel like they need to stop at some point because it's getting a little bit much, I feel. But the first, like, 9 series, I was absolutely hooked. Dean, Cass and Sam are amazing characters, as well as Crowley, and obviously it's got a lot of horror elements into it, which I just think is an immediate way to get me to like a TV show. Obviously it had scary elements, it had comedic elements, which work brilliantly together, and I think that the characters are just incredibly addictive and you're just constantly rooting for them. And I think that the dynamic between Sam and Dean as brothers helming the show is a great one. So yeah, Supernatural is one of my favourite shows, and I kind of should probably pick up from where I left off and keep watching it, but we'll see. The next show on my list is The Young Ones. 80s fans, actually British comedy fans will know immediately, I'm sure, what I'm talking about. The great and late, unfortunately, Rick Mayall is the star of this show. It's about a group of university students that are kind of gross and disgusting but hilarious at the same time. It's excellently written by Rick Mayall and Ben Elton, and I think it's just a staple now in British comedy, and it's a classic sitcom of the 80s that only ran for 2 series, but I think that was just enough. They didn't let it go on for too long and become boring. It's just got some incredibly hilarious jokes that are just delivered in the best way possible by some very, very funny people. And I love it. It's just incredibly quotable. I always come back to it. If it's ever on the TV, on the off chance that it is, I can't help but watch it. But yeah, it's very, very funny. R.I.P. Rick Mayall. I'm still not over that one. The next show on my list is Breaking Bad. Now, I kind of have 2 shows on this list that are interlinked, but the first of these is Breaking Bad. Again, the whole situation with Stranger Things, I was a bit like, everyone loves this show, I should probably watch it. But then it took me ages and ages to actually start watching it, which I kind of regret now, because it's a great show and I understand now why everybody loves it. But of course, Bryan Cranston's performance as Walt is just phenomenal. The fact that he keeps it running with all its nuances throughout 5 incredibly tense and incredibly gripping seasons is something to behold. And I think that no matter who you are, you will enjoy Breaking Bad. I think there's just something so compelling about it that you can't not like it. And I think that the acting is just stunning and the characters are brilliant. It's just fabulous in every single way. So yeah, Breaking Bad had to be on my list. And the next series that is on my list is Better Call Saul. So that is the sort of link between them. I don't know which one I prefer, because obviously Better Call Saul is the spin-off from Breaking Bad, which is about my favourite character, Saul Goodman, Walt's lawyer. So I'm a little bit torn, because obviously Breaking Bad is the original source material. But because I enjoy the character of Saul so much, him having his own series is kind of a joy. And it's on its 3rd at the moment, and it's soon to be 4th. So I'm just really, really excited for where it goes and how we see Saul Goodman evolve into Saul Goodman, the one that we know from Breaking Bad, because it's a prequel. So yeah, Better Call Saul is an excellent prequel to Breaking Bad and an excellent spin-off. Obviously, sometimes spin-offs can go horribly wrong, but in this case they don't, because I do love Better Call Saul just as much, if not a little bit more, than Breaking Bad. Yeah, I said it. The next series on my list is Fargo. I love this show in every single way. I just love everything about it. I think that Fargo as a series has this knack of picking incredibly talented actors to lead its series in each sort of genesis of the show. So in the first series it had Martin Freeman as this really sort of downtrodden Minnesota guy who was struggling at home. His wife was incredibly mean to him, and in the end he just snapped, and then the rest of the series sort of took on the repercussions of him snapping. And I think that the whole thing from the first series until the 3rd, which came out most recently starring Ewan McGregor, is just wonderful. I love the Minnesota setting, the snow. I love the violence. I love how graphic it can be. I also love how funny it can be. But whatever sort of incarnation of Fargo that has been presented to the audience, so in whatever series, because it's a different story, it's a different crime every series, it always manages to hook you completely without fail. Although I do think that the second series starring Ted Danson and Patrick Wilson is my favourite of the three so far, but I would highly recommend watching it. The next series on my list is Mad Men. You'd probably think, oh, advertising in the 1960s doesn't sound incredibly interesting, but actually I thought that, and it turned out to be a great show. Obviously it follows the life of Don Draper, played by John Hamm, who is sort of almost at the top of this advertising company, and it just follows his life being a drunken playboy in the advertising business. I think what's so great about this show is not necessarily the plot, because that can kind of swerve and wane a little bit, but it's the characters that sort of tie you to it. So Christina Hendricks as Joan and Elizabeth Moss as Peggy Olson are fantastic characters, but my personal favourite is John Slattery as Roger Sterling. They're just incredibly fun to watch, and I think you just become tied to them, and it's a really, really brilliant show. The next series on my list is Black Sails. I just, you know when you love a show so much that you can barely articulate words? I watched this show on a whim because I sort of saw it. I think I saw gifs of it and I was like, oh, that looks cool. And I was like, I'll give it a go, and I watched it and it was just amazing. It was a bit of a rocky start. I was like, oh, you know, this could go either way. I wasn't too sure at the beginning, but actually it turned out that it was phenomenal. The production, the characters, the acting, everything. It's just an incredible show. It is about pirates in the 18th century, and it is a sort of half factual, half completely fictional prelude to Treasure Island. So the characters of Flint and Long John Silver are at the forefront of this series, but there's also real life pirates like Blackbeard and Anne Bonny involved as well. So it's a weird mix of fact and fiction, but it works somehow. And I think Toby Stephens' performance as Captain James Flint is fantastic. I love the whole thing, and I highly recommend that if you haven't seen it, you watch it, because it's kind of like the Game of Thrones version of Pirates. It's just great. I can't recommend it any more highly. The final TV show on my list is my absolute favourite of everything that I've mentioned, and it is currently in its 4th series that is playing at the moment on the BBC, and it is Peaky Blinders. It revolves around the Shelby family, who are Birmingham gangsters in the 1920s, and the whole thing is just incredible. I love the cinematography of it, those sort of slow shots of Tommy Shelby, played by Cillian Murphy, walking through industrial Birmingham, sort of flanked by sparks flying everywhere, and the whole cast is just amazing. Paul Anderson as Tommy's brother Arthur, Joe Cole as John, and familiar faces such as Tom Hardy often frequent the screen as well. So I think that it's just a phenomenal show. It's the perfect blend of comedy, drama, violence. It's amazing. And I think that the characters are just so exquisitely written. And I think the storyline is also very strong. So you really can't go wrong with Peaky Blinders. If you're interested in sort of gangster movies and that kind of thing, you might want to give Peaky Blinders a try, because it's kind of just a really, really long movie because it's made so well. And it's just a series that I hold very dearly to my heart. So yeah, that is my top 10 TV shows. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have learned a little bit more about me, and if there's any series that I have mentioned that you have not seen, I highly recommend that you give them a try when you can. Hopefully I'll have inspired you to try some new series, and if you've got any series to recommend for me to watch, then you can always sound off in the comments below. But that is it for now. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!